Hey, good morning. Good morning. Coming to you from Texas today. I came down yesterday and it is hot. We're in Dallas and wow, it is hot. So good to connect. I hope that you're getting over to see the great Collegian Summit. I've been getting great comments from people who are watching that. It's very cool. And we're excited about that. Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance, everybody. Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. It's our, let's start right and say the pledge. Here we go. The stand, if you will. I'll give you the flag if you need it. And here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everybody. Very cool. Thank you for that. Glad you could join me. All right. So I mentioned I'm down in Texas, kind of hot. One good thing, by the way, is I flew out. I haven't flown in a week or two, maybe 3 weeks, and I've never seen the airports more crowded. People are on the move. And in fact, I was talking to a friend of mine who came down with us. He came from Philly, and he said the Philadelphia parking garages were packed at the airport. So I think people are on the move. They're sick of it. And I guess it's a good sign that Joe Biden has decided to have a 4th of July party at the White House, Independence Day. I guess he agrees that we're all getting through this. Anyway, I'm glad. I've been arguing that the 4th of July this year should be a special Independence Day too. Independence, I call it the COVID breakdown. It's not a pandemic. It's the COVID breakdown. It broke down a whole bunch of things in our country. Some of them I hope for good, like the teachers unions. I hope that'll be a breakdown, and some of them not so much. So we'll see. Okay, so the Biden Follies. I wanted to make sure to comment on this, and I talked about this on my radio show, proamericareport.com, if you go over there and check that out. The Biden Follies. One thing I want to do a cautionary statement that I don't know if there will ever be a president who is able to survive for more than one term. When I survive, I mean the scrutiny. It's just too easy to make fun of them. It's too easy to mock them. I mean, I think Biden is particularly good at this in terms of being, he seems addled and seems like he's being led around by his wife and all the rest. But you get with the massive attention on a president nowadays, and the 24-hour news cycle is only the beginning. It's the 60 minutes, the minute by minute. I guess I should do 24 hours. How many minutes in a day? 60 times 24. I can't do math. So whatever that number is, literally minute by minute, a president's, is being scrutinized. Remember when, and it's fake news. It's all, when I say it's fake news, by definition, they want the most sensational thing. Remember when President Trump went to Japan, and they made a big deal out of the fact that instead of feeding the special fish, Trump dumped the whole box in. He dumped the box, and I went back like, oh, look at this, a total faux pas. Donald Trump, dumped all the food in. He'll kill the fish. And then they played the whole video, and it turns out that President Abe, he dumped his whole box in. I guess the way you do it is you feed the fish for a while, and then when you're done, you just dump the rest in and finish up. So my point is, modern presidents are going to live with this sort of minute by minute breakdown. And so it's not totally fair to pick on Biden completely. Meaning, if you could have gone minute by minute with Ronald Reagan on his overseas trips, or Jimmy Carter on his overseas trips, you could, maybe with a guy like Gerald Ford, it might have worked the other way. They were able to cartoon, caricature Gerald Ford as falling down the steps with Chevy Chase on Saturday Night Live, and he never got over that. If they had minute by minute, you would have seen the guy was a, phenomenal athlete. Gerald Ford was probably the greatest athlete that was ever in the White House, a big football player. But my point is, give Biden a break a little. But then you start to watch what his follies are. Did you see him yell at the CNN reporter and wave his finger? He looked like the is it Clint Eastwood in that movie, and it was set, I think, in Detroit, where his next door neighbor is yelling at his neighbor. He looked not unhinged. He looked kind of. He only looked addled, he looked like a cartoon character. It was almost like a Saturday Night Live skit. And then he came out later and apologized. And his apology included something like, "You all aren't very smart," or something. I don't know. It was a crazy exchange. And then the exchange where they asked him, "Do you trust Putin?" And he nodded. The person said, "Do you trust Putin?" And he nodded. Then an hour later, his staff comes out and says, no, he didn't trust Putin. And then they start talking. It's not about trust because they're spinning. They're spinning there. Then he says, then Biden says, I gave Putin some places, some things that he can't hack. I said, if you hack these 16 things, that's considered our serious, stuff. And so we'll be really mad. First of all, who talks about that publicly? Why wouldn't you just say, I told him you can't hit our stuff or we'll really be mad? I gave him 16 sites. Now we need to know the sites. And if you hit those 16, aren't you prioritizing what you actually believe? It's like saying, if you ever bomb these 10 cities, I'll be really mad. If you're the other 100 cities in America, you're like, what happened to us? So the 16 sites, it's past the point of the scrutiny I just mentioned. It's really, really follies. It's really, really follies. And then you say, is it dangerous? And the short answer is, of course it's dangerous. To have a president that is so weak and so incapable of presenting the public. Remember, the president of the United States, the job is to be the public face of America. That's the job. So if you're just constantly, kind of stumbling and mumbling and saying things like, I better not say that I'll get in trouble. You're the president. You don't have to get in trouble anymore. You're like, it's maybe with your wife, but that's it. So it's bad. It is bad. But here's what you need to know. Here's where you need to think about who's really in charge, because the president's supposed to be our outward facing leader. And for all the criticisms of Trump, people said, oh, he's too rough. He tweets too much and all that. What you did know was he was the guy in charge. He was in charge. Maybe he didn't know everything that was going on. No president does in terms of the departments and all. But when he saw stuff, he was in charge. You didn't have to doubt. You didn't think to yourself, maybe there was a debate. They said, Ivanka or Jared has a disproportionate influence. But an hour later, there'd be a story about Peter Navarro having an influence or Mark Meadows having an influence, or pick a name, right? It moved from play. But generally, in this case, you don't hear, do you, about who's in charge? They're very quiet. And you know why? Because there are people in charge. The people in charge are Susan Rice and Ron Klain, the chief of staff. Susan Rice is the domestic policy. Those are the people in charge. And if you're watching what's happening, you're seeing dramatic actions that are real and serious. The statement from the Department of Justice, $100 million will be targeted for the greatest threat to the homeland, which is domestic terrorism by white supremacy groups. Really? Think about what $100 million. They're weaponizing the Department of Justice to go after domestic violence, domestic terrorism, especially white supremacy. By the way, does domestic terrorism, does it include Antifa? Does it include, Black Lives Matter? Who does it include? Well, I don't think you have to doubt. You have to wonder. I think you know who it includes. So my point, 2 days ago, the Court of Appeals confirmed Judge Brown, African-American Harvard Law graduate, credentialed up to the Court of Appeals in the District of Columbia. And now the pressure's ramped up on Justice Breyer to quit. There's people in charge, and they're on the march. Yesterday, Merrick Garland, I think it was yesterday, announced that they were changing all of the Trump-era rules on asylum. When you come to America as an immigrant and you seek asylum, it's a specific question, right? It's not illegal. Illegals rush across the border and go into the country, right? But asylum seekers come here. When they hit the ground, they say, I need asylum because it's political asylum. Because of what? Well, the Obama era wanted to expand asylum to anybody who said they needed to be here, almost like economic asylum. My own home economy is terrible. I want to be here. Let me stay. That's pretty hard to prove. There's laws but you can define what is asylum as the Department of Justice. And what Merrick Garland just did was reverse Trump's efforts to limit the question of asylum, because what they had is they had pushed a notion of domestic violence and gang-related activity. And so you could just come and you could say, I need asylum because back home, my spouse mistreats me, or there's gangs at home. Well, the threshold has to be higher than just saying something. And so yesterday, the Biden administration changed the policy. Trump's policy was, we got to have some a threshold that actually puts, that's not what asylum was. The law wasn't passed, political asylum, for law breaking by citizens against each other in a foreign country. It wasn't passed to protect people from lawlessness of gangs in their hometown. That's not why political asylum was passed. And the idea of expanding it is basically saying anybody that wants to can come here. Again, They're people in charge of the Biden administration. It's not Biden. It's not Biden. And with a guy so addled, it's really not Biden. You could go back, think of Trump and say, who was in charge? Trump was in charge. Did it mean that there were times where some department did one thing and another did another, and Trump didn't always know? Of course, it's a big operation. But when it was big things, Trump knew, and Trump was setting the direction. Biden isn't doing any of that. So who's in charge? And we should not be distracted from the dramatic change in this country based on the policies, especially on the border, especially on the economy. You know, the massive COVID relief, trillions of dollars, has all kinds of attachments, all kinds of rules that are being promulgated that target the money to minority groups. Now, again, you can have that discussion. You can have a discussion about who needs it. But when you say you can't get it, you automatically qualify if you're a minority for aid. Well, what if you're a rich minority? I mean, that's the point. This is supposed to be based on need. You know, in America, is it need, not on some notion of what is called equity. Equity is the people in power decide how to equal the playing field, and they get to define the playing field. Those are who's in charge. That's who's in charge. So the Biden Follies are sort of funny. They're funny to watch, and you shake your head and say, wow, couldn't we have gotten a better top person? You know, how did we end up with this guy? But that's really hiding it's a distraction from who's running things and what they're doing. And in every way, on all the things in my what I care about, it's going in the wrong direction. Whether it's abortion, money paying for abortion, international affairs, Iran is getting more money and more action. You know, we're watching China get more influence. All the things are going in the wrong direction because it's Susan Rice and Ron Klain and some others, not Joe Biden, not Joe Biden. So we don't know what the agenda is. We don't know. Well, we do know. We can see it. And this is my last point. I once had somebody tell me about policy. Don't tell me what you think, or don't tell me what your policy is. Policy papers are. Show me what you're doing. Show me what's actually in the law and what's in the rules and what's happening. And what's happening is not good. So that's the news. That's what I want to say about the Biden Follies. And I've been traveling, so I'm not able to do quite as much of the social media and even TV on the Biden Follies, which is making me crazy because I'd love to do more. But I will be back tonight. I'm flying back to home, so we'll be back tomorrow.